Today I'm going to show you how I created one of my favorite images. This is a 3-bracket HDR image, and we begin by creating the HDR image in Nix Software's HDRFX Pro. The first window you see pop up is where you can select which reference image to use for ghost reduction. In my case, I wanted to use the brightest image, so I selected it at the top on the right hand side, and you can see the change in large preview window. You can also correct chromatic aberration during this step if you need to. Once you're set with the reference image, you click the Create HDR button and the software will blend your 3 exposures. On the next screen, you will see presets in the left pane with thumbnail previews of what each preset will do to your image. My personal favorite presets are Deep 1, Deep 2, and Dark. For this image, I am using Deep 2. On the right pane, you have more control over specifics of the image. Typically, I only adjust the depth, detail, and drama options. I don't do anything with the color because that comes in a later step. I use this program enough to know what options I want to do, but you may need to spend a little more time in the beginning to get a feel for them. Then when you're finished, click Save, and your image is imported back into Lightroom. The next step is to take the newly saved HDR image and open it up in Nix Software's Color Effects Pro. Brilliance/Warmth is the default effect that opens up. Right away you can see how it changes the images, and it does so in a pretty strong fashion. On the left pane you have a wide selection of different filters, and on the right again is where you adjust the components of these filters. I generally turn perceptual saturation down a tad and use a traditional saturation slider and warm things up just a bit. It works well to adjust the sliders to an extreme side and back again to get a feel for what is changing and how much it is actually changing. When you're happy with the first filter, click the Add Filter button at the bottom on the right hand side to add another filter. Next up, I chose Polarization. This is primarily to adjust the blues in the sky, but you'll see it makes subtle changes to the colors in the foreground as well. I'm not going for major changes here, just some subtle adjustments that help to enhance the image in the sky and on the foreground rock. Add filter again to select my next one, which is Contrast Color Range. This filter can have dramatic effects on the entire image, so be careful when adjusting it. And be sure to use all the sliders to help get the desired effect you're after. In this case, I like the changes across the entire image, so I did not use control points. Here you can see me making some fine-tune adjustments to get my desired effect by changing each of the sliders to see what they change. After a minute, I'm happy with the look and ready to move on to the next filter. You'll see that I toy around with the reflector effects, but decided not to use it and moved on to the detail extractor filter. This filter acts a bit like tone mapping and can flatten out the exposure and bring out additional details in the image. Knowing what this does, I'm choosing to use control points to limit the effect to specific parts of the image that I choose. I chose to bring out just a small amount on the foreground rock at the very top with that little light sheen there, and then a lower opacity of the effect on the sun. The control points are fantastic for limiting the effect, and it's easy to adjust the size of the control point and its opacity, as you can see. After placing the control points, I make some more adjustments to the filter, turn it on and off a few times to get a good view of the before and after changes, and find that I want to lower the opacity of the effect on the sun portion some more, so I go ahead and do that. Once I am happy with that, I'm ready to move on to the last filter. As we did before, we click the Add Filter button to continue stacking the filters. The last filter I want to use on this image is the Skylight filter. It really adds a bit of warmth to the foreground, and I decided to use another control point to limit the effect to the foreground rock and a bit of its surrounding area. You can see me adjusting the strength of the filter as well to get my desired look. And like I do with most of the filters, you can see me turning it on and off to see the changes that it's made. At this point I am pretty happy with the look and colors of the image, so I am now able to click Save and save the file, which brings it back into Lightroom again. I always like to check between the original HDR image and the newly edited one we just finished up to compare them. During this process, I noticed some dust spots in the sky and some other places that needed cleaned up a bit. This is where I throw the image over into Photoshop to use the healing brush. Since none of these corrections are major, I only use the healing brush and simply adjust its size accordingly to remove the necessary items I want gone. The dust spots in the sky, a white piece of shell on the bottom right of the frame, and a few spots that look to be some water that got onto the filter I was using to shoot. These spots appear on the rock on the right side of the picture, in the kind of shadowed area there. They're a little bit hard to see, but you might be able to see them if you look close enough. For some images that may require a little bit more fine detailed adjustments or cleaning up, you can zoom way in on the image in Photoshop to make these adjustments, but I didn't find a need to since this is a pretty simple cleanup overall. Sometimes when you're looking for dust spots, it helps to look at a different part of the image for a bit, and then moving back to the area that you're inspecting to give your eyes a little break. Another way that I have found to help notice spots is to focus your eyes above or below where you suspect a spot to be. Some of these spots are subtle enough that I don't see them when I'm looking directly at them, so focusing above or below helps me to notice a little color variation a bit that makes them easier to spot. Now that I'm happy with the cleanup, I close Photoshop and answer yes to the prompt to save the file, and this brings it back into Lightroom yet again for some minor final touches. I do another quick comparison between the previous version and the new one, and I'm quite happy with the cleanup job. After looking at the picture a bit more, I see that I want the color in the sky to be slightly more orange than it is now, so it better matches the shine on the mossy rock in the foreground. Lightroom has a hue adjustment you can use to select a specific color to change the hue of, and this is exactly what I did to make the change. Once that's done, the very last thing I did was simply darken the image about 1/4 of a stop with the exposure slider. And now we have a completed image ready to be exported for sharing and uploading online. Some of you may have already seen this image if you follow me on social media, but I thought it'd be fun to create this little video and tutorial of how this image was created since it's one of my personal favorites. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this to be informative and maybe gave you some new ideas to try when you're editing your next photo. Please visit my website at www.zblackwood.com and check out the post that accompanies this video for a much more detailed description of the process and each step during this image creation. Thank you, and take care.